persecution in Egypt. Dr. Hamed Abdel-Samad is a German political scientist, Egyptian German political scientist and historian. He grew up in a Muslim Sunni family in Egypt. His father was an imam. He immigrated to Germany in 1995, worked for the UNESCO, for the Department of Islamic Studies of the University of Frankfurt, and the Department of History of the University of Munich. He's author of several books which have been translated into many languages, such as Islamic Fascism. He also hosts the YouTube program Box of Islam, which is very popular in the Arab world. Let's all welcome Dr. Abdel-Samad.
So, thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here today, and also a great responsibility. So you have heard my name and my background, so I'm not Christian. Why I'm here today, why I think it is needed to stand up for copts and for minorities in Egypt, it is because I love Egypt. It is because many people think that to criticize the way Egypt is dealing with Copts is something which is against Egypt. Because as an Egyptian, when you speak in the Congress, you should be praising Egypt. You should be asking for more aid for Egypt. No, Egypt is having serious problems, and to be friend with Egypt doesn't mean that you be silent or you are silent about the problems Egypt is having. So I consider it to be my duty to be here, and standing up for Copts means standing up for Egypt. Because the Copts, for me, are the last remains of Egyptian soul, the old Egyptian soul, which is suffering a lot, which has been deformed. And I wish this spirit back. Many years ago, many decades ago, about 500,000 Jews left Egypt because of persecution. And this was self-amputation. Egypt was harming itself so much by losing this human potential. And I consider every Copt who leaves Egypt to be a human loss, a civilizational loss for Egypt. And therefore, I'm here today. I'm also here today for personal reasons. I grew up in a village in the Nile Delta, and I used to have a Coptic friend at school. And he was a very kind young boy. He liked me so much, I liked him so much, we played together. And the issue of being a Copt or not Copt Muslim didn't play a role for us. We were children, we liked each other. And one day something strange happened in my village. We had a small church in the middle of the town. It was like a big village with 20,000 people. We had a small church there, and the Copts of the village wanted to build a second church outside of the village, a bigger one, because it was too small. And the zealots, the religious Muslims, were angry about that. And there was so much agitation in the village, and a mob organized itself, and they went to the old church and destroyed it. And I saw people carrying the wood of the church, walking to the streets and saying, Hayya ala jihad, let's go for jihad, by stealing the valuable things of the church. A few days later at school, the children were surrounding this friend of mine and they were snatching the cross out of his and they were beating him, and they were forcing him to pronounce the Islamic conversions, so to convert to Islam, to say that Muhammad is the Prophet of God, and the proclamation of faith. And this scene has moved me a lot. Still, just to remember that it's hurting me. It was very painful to see that he doesn't deserve that. And it was paining me that I couldn't stand it. So, many years later, now I can speak at least. So, I know these scenes keep repeating themselves. It's not a single case. This story of destroying a church or forcing someone to become a Muslim is hiding the real potential of the problem. We asked President Sisi to issue a new law allowing building new churches. Why do you think that although we have a law to build a new church is still very difficult? Because President Sisi and his government also know that the public mood is not ready for that. People don't want to have churches in their neighborhood. Why is it like this? We have never heard of churches which are inciting violence. We have never heard of churches which are saying bad things about Muslims. We have heard about many mosques which are doing that in relation to copts. So the story is not this government or the government before this government. Like all the files of human rights and persecution of minorities of Egypt, every government is passing the same file to the next one. And no one is daring to say we have a serious disease in the heart of the society. We have been poisoned with hatred against Christians, against Jews, against atheists, against everybody who is not a Muslim or Arab. That's the serious problem. I wished I could have heard in my school something about the religion of my friend. I never heard anything. I didn't know what Copt means. Can you imagine? I first learned that the word Copt means Egyptian when I moved to Germany. I didn't know what it means. I didn't know what it means to be Christian. No one taught us that at school, and this is one of the things when we talk about tolerance, when we talk about living together, freedom of belief, that I wish that Muslim students at school would hear something about the faith of their Coptic friends or students. But this doesn't happen. We had later in the secondary school, we had a chapter in our history book about Copts. Guess the title of this chapter? It was "The Sun of Islam Rises Over Egypt." That's the only chapter where Copts were mentioned. That Copts were living under Roman Empire and they were persecuted, and Islam came and gave them the freedom of belief. That's it. And it's a joke, but it doesn't mention who are the Copts, what they were doing in Egypt, what do they believe. We never learned this. So this is one of the things when you send recommendations and you are asking the Egyptian government to do something, not only to remove the passages of hate from textbooks, but to insert new passages in these textbooks telling the children what does it mean to be a Copt, what kind of faith is that, and talking in respect about this. You might think it's the political situation Egypt now is fighting against terrorism. The Saudis, Wahhabis were spreading a certain theology that were harming the living together. No, the story is much longer than this. The persecution of Copts in Egypt is dating back 1400 years, since day one, because they were resisting. They were trying to keep their identity, and their identity was always under attack. There has been many revolutions of Copts against Muslim rulers. The most prominent one was in the 9th century, in the Nile Delta, in the area where I grew up. And it was smashed severely, and the Copts of Delta were replaced to South Egypt and even to Iraq. And that's why now we have very few Christians still living in the Nile Delta. In the second half of the 18th century, the Grand Sheikh of Al-Azhar, I'm not talking about some imam or something, the Grand Sheikh of Al-Azhar was writing a book. The title of this book was The Clear Proof, Why to Destroy the Churches of Egypt. You might think, come on, this is so long time ago. This is not a sign of persecution of today. No, I can tell you, in the year 2013, the same book was republished again in Egypt with a long introduction of a professor at the university, at the Faculty of Education. So an educator of the educator was republishing this book, teaching Egyptians why the churches of Egypt should be destroyed. Al-Azhar institution, which is always protesting against any book criticizing Islam, did nothing. Was not forbidding this book. You know why this book has something to do with the tragedy we're having today? Because a few months later, more than 80 churches in Egypt were burned. So there is a connection between what happened in the history, and what's written in the books, and what's in the minds. So there are many layers. Persecution is not coming overnight. It's a long sociological and psychological process. We were living in a very simple village, and I was asking myself all the time, what happened? It didn't happen overnight. And it was not just because of this story of the church, because in the minds of the people, in the hearts of the people, there was so much hidden hatred which was just waiting for the right time to appear. And that's how persecution happens. How can you measure persecution? How can you measure persecution? We heard a wonderful presentation about the 10 stages of genocide. And I was preparing a formula and I see it crossing. So I'm calling my formula the 4 Ds. How can you see and detect persecution against a certain minority or a certain group of people? 4 Ds. And the first D is discrimination. We see that first one is discrimination, the second one is double standards, the third one is delegitimization, and the fourth one, and here we cross, dehumanization. This is how it works. Discrimination. Look around you, everywhere you go in Egypt. We have heard, I was preparing a lot of examples, but I was very surprised that the speakers are very well informed, and they said, so I could save the time that I was spending to prepare all of these lists, what happens in all aspects. From the military to the police, to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, universities, even the soccer team, the basketball teams. You can see this structural discrimination of Copts everywhere. Second one, double standard. If somebody is telling you Copts are not persecuted in Egypt. Then tell him, how is it to build a mosque or to build a church? If you want to build a mosque, it's the easiest thing in life, and you'll be a very, very honorable person, and you'll get electricity and water for free. And if you want to build a church, yeah, you will be nailed on the cross. Yes. And the Al-Azhar Sheikh, and that's the generosity of Al-Azhar Sheikh in the year 2005, he was saying something very strange. He said, well, Islam has nothing, or it is allowed to build a church as long as this does not harm national security. I was just wondering, how many mosques are harming national security? What are we fighting against in Egypt? Are we fighting against Christian terrorism? Are we fighting? What are we fighting? It's the same government which is saying we have to fight against terrorism. In the year 2017, last year, something happened, or many things happened at the same time that showed me the problem. Many Christians have been forced to leave their homes in Al-Arish in Sinai. Many houses have been set on fire. And in the same week, one of the most prominent figure of international terrorism died, Sheikh Hamed Abdel-Samad, known as the blind sheikh in America. I'm sure you are familiar with him. Who was this sheikh? He is the one who incited a series of violence against Copts in Egypt in the 80s. So the Islamic movement, the terrorists, wanted to fund their attacks against the police and the state, but they didn't have money. And Sheikh Hamed Abdel-Samad said, it's allowed to attack the jewelry shops of Copts and the pharmacies and steal their money and steal their gold because they don't pay jizya anymore, so they deserve that. This guy died last year in America, in the prison's hospital, and was taken back to Egypt. And what I saw was horrible. Tens of thousands of Egyptians attending his funeral, chanting jihad songs. And the government knows that. And they know it's deep in the heart of the people. It's not just a group which is fighting in Sinai, fighting in Syria. No, they know it's deeply rooted in the society, in the hearts and minds of the people. So they were celebrating a terrorist who was asking to kill the Copts and steal their shops. In the same week, President Sisi was asking Al-Azhar to reform the religious discourse, to help him talk about tolerance more than talking about violence, to make a committee to fight against radical groups. What was the first reaction of Al-Azhar? They were forming a committee to fight against atheism. That was happening. A committee to fight against atheism, and this brings me to the next point. The persecution of Copts has a system, and this system is the leaders of Egypt, but also the people of Egypt. They talk a lot about diversity, but one-sided. But in fact, the mood and the identity politics and the general temperament of the people is based on monoculture. They feel insecure when they see plurality and diversity. They feel it's a thing. In free societies, diversity is a strength. in unfree societies, diversity is seen as a danger. So Copts are seen as a danger. Copts are seen as a long arm of the West in Egypt. And this is the third D, delegitimization. They are not real Egyptians, although they are the original Egyptians. But to portray them as outsiders, the long arm of colonialism. Yeah. So they are not legitimate. And then, therefore, you hear when a sheikh is saying Egypt is Islamic and Sharia is our law, and if they don't like it, they can go to Canada. Yeah. Legitimization. And then the fourth D is the dehumanization, and this is the step before the genocide. That's exactly what happened in Germany when Hitler and his officers were using words like Ungeziefer, like insects, to describe the Jews, to dehumanize them. Because dehumanizing a human being means you destroy the bridge between you and him as co-human beings, as brothers in humanity. No, they are not humans. And that's what has been preached in the mosques of Egypt for generations about Christians and Jews, that they are filthy, that they are not clean, that they are, that you should not be friends with them. And the word unbeliever, there is no culture today is using the word unbeliever except the Islamic culture. And they are not using it to describe that he's another believer or he believes in something else. No, they are using it as a judgment that this person has no legitimization. Is not like us human beings. That's happening, taking place for years. And every government is faced with this fact. The mood of my people are against women, against Copts, against SS, against gays. And that's why all of these groups are persecuted in Egypt. Even other Muslims who are not following the mainstream Sunni Islam. Shia Muslims are persecuted in Egypt. Sufi Muslims are persecuted in Egypt. Baha'is who are respecting Islam so much, which is one of the most peaceful religions you can imagine, they are seen as danger for national security. So, having said that, having heard that, what can we do? How can we get out of that? I'm aware of the tough situation Egypt and the current government is in. Fighting against terrorism is not an easy task. Having regional powers like Qatar and Turkey who are trying to undermine the security of Egypt to interfere is also something very dangerous and very important. But it's needed. And also Egypt is a strong ally and friend of the United States, and Egypt should remain a strong ally and friend of the United States. But as I said at the beginning, one of the conditions of friendship is honesty. Now, when we sit together, we don't exchange diplomatic floskels, but we say the truth about the problems we're having, and we have serious problems. So I expect from the Egyptian government and the Egyptian president not only to say beautiful statements about diversity, but to make a master plan for that in education, to end the structural discrimination in the working places, universities, and in the national institutions. I want to see facts. When we talk about this topic, we also need to be honest, and we should never accept the blackmailing of the word Islamophobia. Phobia is a disease. We are not sick, we are describing the disease. But that's The strange thing, you are describing a disease, you are even offering a medicine against this disease, and somebody pops up and tells you, you are the sick one. Shut up. You're hurting the living together. No, I want to optimize it. I want it to be a peaceful living together. And I have expectations to the Coptic community in Egypt. I know how much they are under pressure. I know how much the Coptic church is under pressure. Many politicians would go to visit Egypt, they sit with the Coptic church and representative, and they hear nice things, that things are improving, and it's the golden age of Copts in Egypt. I understand the people. They are in a tough situation. But don't buy this. I also expect the Coptic civil society in Egypt to move. It's not just a religious issue. It's the issue of the civil society. I expect the Coptic civil society to do more to the secularization in Egypt. Not just the issue of Copts and Muslims. Copts and Muslims. No. Citizenship. That's what we want. And that's the way out of this hell. I don't want the Egyptian president to say, I want to be kind to our Copts because my Islam is asking me to be kind. No, I don't care what your Islam is saying. You are a president, not a caliph. I care about what law is saying, what international law is saying, what the Constitution is saying. So, don't deal with Copts as dhimmis. Deal with them as citizens, equal citizens. And show me that on the ground. And that they're living together with you is not out of your mercy, but it's their right. This is something that needs to change in the mentality of the government in Egypt, needs to change in the mentality of education in Egypt, and needs to change in the mentality of Copts themselves. Refuse the status of dignity. Thank you for being so kind to listen to me. I surpassed my time. I have a lot of things to say, but maybe we can do that in the questions. Thank you and for the invitation.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, I have some questions. Can we ask from the floor?
Yeah, because I can't find any more cards. Yeah, there's no more cards.
Microphone, or how do we do it?
Stand up and ask.
Go ahead. There's a microphone.
So I'm just wondering, Doctor, if you could just comment, and thank you so much for the things that you offered, your courage and your love. If you could say how you see free speech and freedom of the press and digital media being used again and again to advance the cause of the protection of the Coptic Christians, although perhaps not inside the country, it cannot be done. There are many free Copts outside, and all of us can raise our voices, so please comment on this.
There are many things that can be said today that were impossible in the past, and they can be spread through social media. My program on the internet is the best example for that. In the past, I would have maybe written an article and it comes in the newspaper or not, and just a few thousand people are reading it. Now when I'm making a video, it's going viral, millions of people are watching it, and this is, of course, something that you need to make use out of. One thing which is very important for young Copts in Egypt, that I wish that they will learn that Egyptian government and institutions, they never give something for free. They always need to be under pressure to give even basic rights. So now the Salafists are in a very tough situation in Egypt after the Muslim Brothers lost their holds in the government, but they still can negotiate and get extra rights because they threaten with certain things, disobedience or demonstrations. Al-Azhar had lost a lot of power among the people after the IS, but still can negotiate and get extra privileges. The government and the society are relying on the Copts because they're always peaceful and because they always offer their loyalty free of charge. And that's the thing that needs to be done. Remain peaceful but be committed and put the government under pressure and don't sell your bread for free. Just say like, you want this from me, then give me that in return. And you can organize that on Facebook and Twitter, but you can do that in the civil society. That's what I meant when I said the issue should not just be between the president and the Pope, but the patriarch, but something between the president, the society, and the Coptic civil society as a group of interest and a group of pressure.
How to change the Islamic ideology?
That's a big thing. I mean, I'm having my channel Box of Islam, and as I've done that at the beginning, people thought you are crazy, you are committing suicide. You were talking about Muhammad and the Quran, you cannot do that. And I said, no, it's time. And I've been always faced with this argument, Muslims are not ready yet. And that's the wonderful word that we heard before. This is the soft bigotry of lowered expectations. Muslims are not ready yet. So no. Maybe they are not ready yet because we think they are not ready yet. Because no one is talking. No, I'm living today. I'm not going to wait until they are ready. I have certain criticism. I post that in my books, on my YouTube channel, and people are responding to that. Also young Muslims, this gives me hope. I mean, we talked about atheism. How many millions left Islam recently? Many millions. In Egypt alone, between 3 and 4 millions. That's something that is showing that things are changing, and this ideology cannot stand unchangeable, wishing that everybody will just be committed to it. You know, people think, and things are moving forward. What we need is courage. Courage from both sides. Courage from young Muslims who are critical about their religion, that they come out and speak, and courage of Copts to come out and speak, courage of atheists to come out and speak. That's how you start to change a society.
Yeah. How is the way of Gandhi, peaceful disobedience, modified to the 21st century? Will it work in Egypt? Is this a good way to do it, peaceful and try to put pressure on them? And what will be the reaction of the Muslim side? Thank you.
Great question.
I have witnessed myself an act of peaceful disobedience that happened in Egypt, and unfortunately it ended up in a catastrophe. It was the 9th of October 2011, just a few months after the revolution, when Copts took to the streets demonstrating peacefully. It was the first time in the modern history to see it, or on that scale, that many 10,000s of Copts were going to the street and demonstrating. And I saw the ugly face of Egypt on this day. I was talking to a young Copt called Samir. It was in the first year of the anniversary of the revolution on the Tahrir Square. I saw a young man collecting garbage and painting the Egyptian flag on his cheeks. I asked him, are you celebrating the first year of the revolution? And then he said, I wish I could, but I'm broken. He said on that day, he was on the Tahrir Square and he was on this group that was protecting the Muslims who were praying on the Tahrir Square in this famous scene. He said, I thought Egypt is changing now. Now I can take to the street. Now I can ask for my rights. Then he said, on that black day of the 9th of October, he went and he was standing in front of the Maspiro, that television building, and he said, very normal Muslims. They just saw the cross on my hand. They were carrying me and they were throwing me in the Nile. And this, he said, I was broken on that day. That I felt I was dreaming of a new Egypt, and I saw it's not a dream, it's a nightmare. So this is something which is, but I support the idea of peaceful disobedience. That's the only way we have. We can never be like the others who take weapons to go to the street to change. Egypt cannot stand this. The second thing is, peaceful disobedience by Copts, polarizing and winning secular Muslims. That's the thing, networking. And that's the thing that will help Copts to get out of this shell of isolation, to stretch the hands to secular Muslims, to stretch the hand to the Catholic and Protestant Church in Egypt and outside of Egypt, and to learn how networking work. Everybody, the Islamists, learn how to have a strong network. The Copts need to learn that.
Now that Maspiro came up, do you see any hope? You talked about civil society and the role of the Copts in civil society. Do you see a hope in the Copts organizing? Because the church is completely co-opted and under serious pressure. But do you see the Copts organizing civil society organization outside of the church?
I see seeds, like the human rights movement. It was the seeds of it. They were coming from the Copts, and this is not new in Egypt. Like it's in the 20s, the Copts were the first who were moving to a secular constitution. They were moving towards like human rights organization, women rights organization. That's exactly the place. We cannot live in a society which is governed by religion, no matter which religion. So, and the only way out is to open the doors for a secular society which is respecting all religions, but also not determining everything through the eyes of religion. I see the seeds of Coptic civil society, but most of the time they are working together also with secular Muslims, and this is, I see, the bigger chance. Not just like a Coptic pure organization, but a Muslim Coptic human rights organization calling for citizenship for everyone, not that the one is the kind Muslim and the other one is the humiliated dhimmi. This concept has no future. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have to watch. Okay. So one last question.
What do you think about the Azhar education system, which is taught from kindergarten to the higher degree, separating totally the people who educated in this system never met or talked to any Coptic person in their life. The second question, what was the name of the Grand Imam who wrote this book?
So the name of the Grand Imam who wrote the book is Imam Al-Damanhuri. And the title in Arabic is Al-Hujja al-Bahira fi Hadm Kana'is Misr wal-Qahira. Yes. About Al-Azhar. Al-Azhar for me is enemy of Copts and enemy of Egyptian people together. And is a danger for the future of this country. The money which is spent over this institution can be invested in normal education to reform the educational system. Al-Azhar is for me Daesh light or diet Daesh. So it is, and it's even more dangerous than Daesh. Why? Because when we talk to somebody from Daesh, and believe me, I talk to somebody from Daesh, you will see it on Books of Islam next week. You know what you have. You know what you have. Because they are clear in their ideology, they're clear in their way of behavior, what they think. They will tell you, you're a Copt, you're an unbeliever, I hate you. But Al-Azhar is like more sneaky. They will put the poison in the honey, but they still teach hatred, they still teach the two-class society. And that's exactly the Egypt that we need to change. Egypt is now a country of privileged and subjects, not a country of citizens. You have organizations which are privileged, like the army, the police, like Al-Azhar, like the Sunni organizations, and you have others which are subjects, which are the normal Egyptians, which are the Copts, which are the other minorities, and this needs to change, and the rebellion has to come from all Egyptians when they have strong networks, and when they remain peaceful, and when they do that just for Egypt, not for Qatar, and not for Saudi Arabia, and not for Turkey. And the problem is we have some who are doing that not for the sake of Egypt, but for the sake of other countries and for other privileges, and we need to differentiate that. Whoever wants Egypt to get back to its old strength, to this old spirit of Egypt that I'm still dreaming of, and it's still there. When I see your faces, and the faces of also other Muslims, I discover Egypt is much more than this, and deserves more than this, and Egypt will get better than this. Thank you so much.